This is the Between Night Visitors Part 6. Let's do some recapping. We had a lot happen last time. We did not have Alicia, so we are going to be maybe be a little bit more detailed with my recap than I normally would be, just so that everyone's caught up. But we'll do the simple recap first, which is just hunter conditions and threats, taking a look at hunter conditions. We have a lot of conditions on the table right now. The Beast, Hank Nelson, has the day mask, a taste for it. And by the way, a taste for it is human flesh. And the Sons of Another World. Green has Marked by La Hortensia Figg. I have the law there for you. Julius's Sport and Always the Last to Leave. We have Mr. Quinn's return. We have Intrigued by Mr. Taliford and the Unclearable Most Beloved. And Mr. Taliford has a taste for it, again, human flesh, and the Spider. Let's talk about last time in terms of threats. We just have one active threat currently. It's called Figg's Pigs. And essentially, it kicked off because Mr. Taliford was sent one of the Figg family's famous Figg's Pigs pork pies, and it had a finger in it or something. Or no, it was like a tooth, right? It had like a tooth in it. Scotland Yard was informed. Mr. Figg was arrested and brought to Bethlehem Royal Hospital. His 3 family members, however, they are on the lam. And Scotland Yard has actually asked for Hargrave House's help in catching the 3 loose figs. This is extra interesting because right now your sort of normal Scotland Yard nemesis is a worshiper of Mr. Quinn. So we'll see how if that has any intersection with that. But in any case, we have 3 questions. All 3 questions are fairly easy, but all 3 must be answered and all 3 opportunities must be resolved in order to resolve the threat. So the first is about Patrick Figg. Patrick Figg believes he's an animal. You have to figure out what kind of animal does Patrick Figg believe he is. It allows you to lure Patrick out in the open and then capture or destroy him. That's complexity 2. The much more unsavory brother is Obert Figg, Obert the Blade. And the question is, what type of victim does Obert the Blade prefer? This allows you to lure Obert Figg to you and then capture or destroy him. And finally, the mother, La Hortensia. What did La Hortensia lose that she's trying to recapture or remember? That allows you to find La Hortensia and then capture or destroy her. There's a special rule here. All 3 figs must be captured or destroyed in order for this to resolve. The only one that has to be done at night is the final one. So whoever's last of those, that one has to be at night. We have 2 clues presently, a collection of progressively smaller skeletal left hands and long blonde hair folded and collected in a silk sack. Those were found at the Figg's business and home. I do want to point out that there are several places at Figg's Pigs at their shop that you could explore. So far, we've only seen 2 of those places. So you can go to, you basically have the front counter area, the kitchen, the upstairs apartment, and then the basement. We only saw the kitchen and the basement. So the front area of Figg's Pigs is still available to be, so you can actually search all of it if you want, but we have not seen those yet, nor the apartment that they live in above the shop. The basement was a really interesting place because it appears that at least one member of the Figg family is dedicated to a pagan swine god called Muck. And there was a lot of like gruesomeness down there related to that. But also the Figgs are very like sweet with each other. Like they're very like a nice family with each other. and we saw La Hortensia Figg going to, she actually like is sort of like takes care of and like entertains like children of these sex workers in a brothel. So she like sort of looks after the kids a little bit while their mothers are plying their trade. And it was a really sweet thing. But also we saw Obert the Figg decapitate a police officer when that police officer was closing in on La Hortensia. So Green saw that. So they have this like interesting, like they're very like seemingly nice people, but also rarely violent, nice people. So it kind of bounces back and forth. Also, one little detail about La Hortensia, she's missing her left arm, or no, her left arm. And so that's just a little bit about Figg's Pigs. We met one significant side character, Dr. Rodney Walters. I don't think you got his name, but I'm giving it to you now. He's actually Mr. Figg's physician at Bedlam. Mr. Figg, of course, is captured at Bedlam, which is a sanitarium. So that's where we're at with Figg's Pigs. I want to talk about some other things that are like not directly threat related that happened last time that were pretty important. The first is that Julius is really, really tightening the screws on Green. His presence in the house is becoming more of a problem, and we had some scenes that I don't know how else to describe except like just like quite like kind of, I mean, they had like a really strong like BDSM kink vibe of Julius basically like kind of like tormenting Green. And so that was a thing. Also, Mr. Nelson went to Mr. Bell's home by himself. That's the demon in Limehouse, or whatever, the angel, whatever Mr. Bell is. He went to Mr. Bell's home, which is run down and dilapidated, unlike what we were previously led to believe when Mr. Taliford goes there. Mr. Nelson went to Mr. Bell's home, and his transformation into his were form was instantly happened. It started happening like late in the day. And Mr. Taliford arrived, and basically they had to spend that night phase keeping Mr. Nelson under control while he was in his were form. Turns out Mr. Nelson's a were spider, so that was intriguing. And yeah, is there anything else I'm missing in terms of like big stuff that happened last time? I feel like a lot happened. Only 2 clues on the threat, but a lot of other stuff happened. So can anyone remember anything or want to be reminded of something?
It ended with the dreams of the swine god. That's
right. Yeah, we did the Mask of the Pig, and we saw every character in their dream giving up offerings to the swine god Mok. So that was it was a very wild, gruesome session. Anything else? Any other questions? That was a lot, Alicia. I don't know if that just do your best to keep up, I guess.
My only question is, how big are you as a were spider? Is it like
big,
a
right?
big spider?
Oh yeah, he's like about twice as large as he is normally, just spider.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. Mr. Bell actually thought that Mr. Taliford brought Mr. Nelson there as a replacement for Julius, because if you recall, Julius escaped Mr. Bell and is now living in Hargrave House. And so Mr. Bell thought that Mr. Taliford was like making an offering of Mr. Nelson. So there was a bit of confusion around that point with Mr. Bell. But yeah, it was a wild session. Okay, so if there's nothing else.
I think the one other thing is the question of the custom move that I took as an advance for Green.
Oh yes, we haven't talked about that. I saw you message me about it and it slipped my mind. But let's, yes, let me just read it real quick, if you'll just give me a moment. Oh, I like it. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I think it works great. Let's read it. So this is a custom move that Green has now called Always the Last to Leave. And essentially what it is whenever Green springs into action or stays behind to take care of the aftermath of a situation, we roll, and then essentially either it succeeds, Green succeeds with and does not leave a trace, or there's a complication such as leaving a trace or someone noticed you or other things. On a 12 plus, you also find a clue. It's good. I like it. It's a little more like kind of like it's basically like day work, but more immediate, right? In some ways, right? So which I think is interesting, more active. That works for me. You can go ahead and transfer that to your sheet whenever you want to.
It's there.
Cool. And so with that said, let's go to our phase tracker. I had to play a game the other day without one of these fancy character keepers, and the struggle was real. I was like, I'm so accustomed to like automated stuff now that it's like, wait, what? We have to like actually do this. Okay. New threat. Our new threat is called the Whateley Camera. There's a lot of detail in this one, so just pay close attention. The Whateley Camera. The Hargrave House library contains research on the so-called Whateley Camera, one of the first wet plate type cameras ever produced. People who are photographed by the camera have been known to disappear without a trace. An American scientist and philosopher, Atticus Whateley, studied the camera for a number of years and proposed that it was some sort of entity, a demon, or even a god, and that the people who went missing had been transported to another dimension. Whateley advanced an idea called the Fragrant Void, a sort of proto-Earth that existed in near total darkness and was home to powerful entities who were banished by God on the first day of creation. He believed some of those entities could still operate in our world, hidden from view, perhaps through common objects like the camera. While his research couldn't prove the existence of the Fragrant Void, he did manage to show how the camera caused people to be whisked away to another dimension. Unfortunately, before he could present his work for review, he was killed, his notes were destroyed, and the camera went missing. So that's all information Hargrave House knows from their archives. 1 week ago, an actress, Penelope Levy, disappeared. She was last seen at the Society Obscura, an exclusive and secretive club for wealthy photography enthusiasts located in a converted townhouse in Kensington. A missing actress wouldn't merit much attention from Hargrave House, if not for the fact her lover, Bert Broadswell, sent the hunters one of the pictures taken of her at the Society Obscura. I will pose this question to a hunter who has the cosmic passage marked. Who has the cosmic passage marked currently? Oh, 3 of you do. Okay. Let's go with Mr. Quinn. Mr. Quinn, something unusual about this photograph of Penelope Levy confirms it was taken with the Whateley camera. What is it?
I think there is a light leak, the same light leak in every photo taken with the Whateley camera. But what's interesting about it is it looks identical, but it's always directly over the face of the person in the photo, so it actually moves around.
Oh, nice. I love it. That's great. We have a single question here, but the question unlocks 2 opportunities, both of which can be pursued. The question is, what circumstances will cause someone photographed by the camera to disappear? Like, how do you do it, essentially? The opportunities, the first one is resolve the threat by reversing this process and bringing Penelope Levy back to this world. Or, if you wish, you can use the camera to transport yourself to Whateley's alleged Fragrant Void and make contact with the entity there. Doing so gives you access to a new custom move for everyone called Void Walker. So that is what's going on. Nothing super pressing. Like, the Society Obscura is just a club for eclectic photography weirdos. And this actress, her disappearance is not some major thing. It's not something that even Hargrave House probably cares about too much. But the Whateley camera is something Hargrave House has known about for a long time, and it's of interest. So that is what is drawing your attention there. And so with all that said, we have 2 active threats. We have loads of conditions to clear. I'm going to go around the table and find out what everyone's interested in doing today for this day phase. I think this will be probably several days since the incidents of last time. So we'll start with Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson, what do you think?
I would love another morning mass with Mr. Taliford.
Sounds good. Mr. Taliford, post morning mass, what would you do?
So I feel like I'm in a little bit deep with this cannibalism thing. So maybe the camera would be a good distraction from that. So I think I'd go investigate this photography club.
Sounds good. What about you, Mr. Quinn?
I think I would like to start by checking in with Green about what's going on with Julius. But then I too would like to go to check out this camera club, this secret society.
Okay, so maybe a vulnerable move scene with Green and Mr. Quinn. Green, what about you after that scene?
Well, I think that's a great opportunity because I think Green showed up at Mr. Quinn's room with a camera. All this talk about photography, I think, brought him to bring out one of the cameras at Hargrave House. Because I'm sure Mr. Quinn needs some new portraits.
Very good. Why don't we start with the morning mass scene then? This is your advice, Mr. Taliford. So set it up. What's going on in that scene?
So I think I've brought Mr. Nelson to mass because so I suspect that he's starting to sense the same sort of things I do, right? Like that he can sort of feel like Mr. Bell hovering over him at all times. So I just want to bring him here and sort of see what reaction he has to being inside the church, if it's the same sort of peaceful place for him as it is for me, because I suspect he's in a bad place right now.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll add to that as far as setting up the scene is I think that Hank wasn't he didn't come home the night before. I think he had stayed out at the opium den he frequents. And so I think you almost thought that he wasn't going to join you for mass this morning, but he did show up on time, if a little bit languid. But I think it's been more frequent the nights that Hank hasn't been back at Hargrave House since the incident. And so I think you can tell that something has been bothering Hank for sure. So
I think as soon as he sees Hank, Taliford is kind of brings him across the threshold of the church and is watching his face to see if he has any sort of reaction to entering in.
Yeah, I think as he steps across the threshold, I think when he showed up, he had been, he was a little bit languid, but he was definitely checking over his shoulder a little bit and watching the streets. But now when the two of you enter, I think you see his shoulders relax a little bit. And I think actually he looks just a little bit quizzical. Because last time when you described that sensation to him, he didn't really get what you were talking about. But now upon stepping in, I think he's a little bit confused why he feels a little bit better having stepped across this threshold.
So yeah, I think we can just kind of hang out during the mass, right? There's probably not a lot of talking during the mass, but I think afterwards, Taliford is definitely so I think you can feel it now, right?
There's something about this place that is a comfort. I didn't quite notice it before.
So you can always come here. That's the thing you need to know is I don't know if it's going to get worse. I don't know if it's going to get better, but if you can feel the presence out there and it ever overwhelms you, you can just come here and it'll ease up. And then you can, collect yourself, decide what to do next, and then go back out and face it again.
I think Hank, nods along. How have you done this for so long, Mr. Taliford?
Well, it's like anything, when you're exposed to it at a young age, you just think it's normal. And so, I got a lot of help in the beginning from places like this, but eventually you discover that you don't really need help, and maybe it's holding you back from what you could actually be. But there's no shame in leaning on someone if you need it.
I think Hank smiles a bit at that. I certainly appreciated your help the other evening, Mr. Taliford. That's not a side of myself I like to show others. It's one I prefer to keep well locked up.
Well, I'm sure we all have our secrets. Some people may have larger secrets than others, but don't worry. Your secret is absolutely safe with me.
Well, if there's anyone here in this city, perhaps in this world, who I believe I could trust with it, I think at this point it would be you. So I thank you for your help here.
Yeah, and I assume that we're on the same page, that the way to get Mr. Bell off your back is to give him Julius again, right?
And Hank oh, I would much rather not be the plaything of that creature. No.
Yeah.
I think that Julius has many playful qualities that really predispose him to being suitable for that role.
I think so. I think that the natural state of affairs is for Julius to be with Mr. Bell and for you to be free again. So we should endeavor to make that happen at the earliest opportunity.
I think maybe the camera starts to pull out and the voices fade out as he's like, so do we trick him or?
That's good. I like it. It sounds like maybe you were clearing the day mask there, Nelson.
Yeah, I think that's what I was aiming for Hank.
Yeah.
Because he's sort of letting down that guard, at least with Taliford.
And sort of vice versa, like the spider, I guess, for Mr. Taliford, right?
Yeah, I think so. Just seeing Nelson as a person again.
Nelson kind of asked a question about your past, but I don't know if it was really I don't know if you necessarily answered in a way that would require you to choose that as your option, Mr. Taliford. So if you can choose that still, or you can stumble on a clue, your choice.
I think we'll stumble on a clue.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, you define the clue, so be thinking of it.
Right, yeah. Come back to me on that.
Yeah, sure. Let's have that scene with Green and Mr. Quinn. So Green, you were sort of setting it up. What's going on here?
I think Green appears in the morning at the maybe after Mr. Quinn has already Green has already helped Mr. Quinn to put on clothes, and kind of the morning has started, but then they come back and they bring this camera device, probably a bit of an ancient kind of big thing, and they say well, I thought all this talk about photography in the last few days, it got me thinking, why don't we take a nice, wonderful portrait of you to hang? There's never too many portraits of you in the house, and I think it has been a while, don't you think? I would, and lastly, you've in the last days you've been looking so radiant.
Well, I'm only looking radiant because of this beautiful new suit you've put together for me, and I think it does deserve to be captured on film, and we can do that. But then I also have another idea.
Yes, and I think maybe if you move over a bit to the window, and if we put, and I think Green will kind of rearrange a bit the furniture in the room to make kind of a set for for this photography session, and we'll come to Mr. Quinn and kind of straighten out the suit again, comb their hair, and all of that in preparation. And then I think they will say, I'm just so happy that you are back. I've told you about this. It was a brutal killing.
Hey, Adrian, I'm gonna stop you for a moment because we're losing you. You're breaking up. I think you froze up. We'll give Adrian a moment to get back on. I'll pause the recording while we're doing that. Okay, so we lost Adrian, but we will get caught up on that scene in a moment. Let's switch over to back to this clue. Mr. Talford, what'd you find?
Okay, so I think that the priest who I have an ambiguous relationship with gives me a clue, and I think it is, again, I think it's unclear even how he gets it, but it's a picture of La Hortensia on a farm surrounded by chickens.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. I like that.
It's hard to make clues that could apply to multiple questions. Like this seems like a hard one to write clues for.
Imagine writing the mystery.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I mean, well, so in the advice on like writing the threats, it actually says like you can write like about a third of them should be clues that kind of point towards one question more than another, so
gotcha.
Fine. Yeah. Okie doke. Well, what do we do after that? So, Mr. Talford, it sounded like you and Mr. Quinn were thinking about going to investigate the Society Obscura, which I think sounds great. Mr. Nelson, what were you going to do after that scene?
That's a good question. Originally, I was thinking about also investigating the camera and stuff around that. Although on the other hand, leaving the figs out and about certainly is a conscious decision we'd be making. So I might go and do some of that. We saw them over in Limehouse recently, right?
We did, yeah. That's where they were. Yeah, they had. It sounds like they are being actively sought by the police, like not just you all, right? So yeah.
So actually, I think since Mr. Talford didn't turn over all the rocks at their shop, I think I'll go to turn over some more rocks at their shop.
Okay, so we have Adrian back. So why don't we pick up that scene between Mr. Quinn and Green? So just rewind a little bit because we missed like the last 30 seconds or so of what you said, Green.
Basically, I think Green is just putting together kind of a portrait scene next to the window with some furniture in the back and maybe a painting, and then trying to take this kind of complex portrait of Mr. Quinn. And talking about Julius and about the gruesome death of the police officer and all of this, and then this lady, and somehow she looked at me in this weird way. And, you have such a good... You have always such a good way with women. Maybe she's the way she looked at me. Maybe you should try to find her. She looked but very peculiar. Miss Figg.
But was she very beautiful?
Well, intriguing, I think. That's what I would say. And you always, there's so many beautiful women in this city, but the ones that have kept your attention for more than 1 or 2 days are not as many. So maybe she could be someone interesting.
Perhaps, perhaps. But first we must deal with this camera situation.
So what's this photograph look like? What's happening, Mr. Quinn?
So as we've taken the portrait, and I think it's really nice, and I'm happy with the portrait, and we're gonna go put that up in the house or whatever Green wants to do, because I'll just do whatever makes Green happy. But then I'm like, but we need to get answers about this camera. And I get very serious here. I have a plan. I'm going to infiltrate them as if I were a model. I mean, I basically am a model anyways. Everyone likes to look at me, but we'll take some photos, you know, some like risque photos, and then I'll bring them to this society, and then they'll invite me in because they'll all want to photograph me, and then we can get answers about the camera.
I think Green.
I'm talking, I'm just like
Yeah.
taking my clothes off.
Exactly. So Green is kind of looking like, do you want me to take these? Okay. Right now.
Yes. Right now, we'll have to develop the photos so that we can take them today when I go with Mr.
Okay.
Talbot.
Okay. So why don't we move this whole situation then? And I think Green is kind of a bit uncomfortable at the moment with the situation, kind of trying to focus on the technology and turning this whole camera around towards the bed, maybe. So probably this is a situation where we better. So you could sit first on the bed and then maybe.
No, we have to get right to the good stuff. And I like open the bedside drawer and like pull out a flogger. And I'm like, I think against the wall. And I'm just gonna like take like a really intense stance and just start like flogging myself and be like, get the picture.
Green,
I imagine it sounds outrageous to anyone outside of the bedroom.
I think Green is really doing their best to kind of keeping up with the scenes, I think, that Mr. Quinn is putting up, and trying to take and to give the whole thing. And we've learned that Green, they have some kind of fashion background, so maybe it's a kind of like, you know, to give it a kind of an artistic look, even though we went directly like to, you know, like I think photos that want to impress the society, and something that you don't see usually. So but I think Green is there still trying to kind of keep it in a way that this would also be like, you could make an exhibition of these photographs and it would still be considered a kind of very risk but societally acceptable event, at least in a certain part of like the higher society. That's kind of the look I think Green would be going for. Yeah.
Good. This is your vice, Mr. Quinn, so you can stumble on a clue or you can invite Green to ask you a question about the past.
This feels more like a stumble on a clue situation to me than a question about the past.
Okay, good. Be thinking about the clue. It can apply to either of the active threats. And we will just let us know whenever you got it. And also, since you weren't there when it was discussed, Adrian, the clue that Mr. Talford stumbled on is the priest at the church, knowing the sort of work that Mr. Talford gets up to, actually has like a photograph, keeping with our theme today, of La Hortensia on a farm surrounded by chickens. So Mr. Nelson, you decide to go back to Figg's Pigs, the pie shop. And I'll remind you all that Scotland Yard is really interested in this investigation not being very public, and because they don't want to cause a hysteria in the city related to pies. And so you have access to the shop, and the shop is not like being treated like a crime scene of any sort. And I think as you approach the shop, Mr. Nelson, you see a boy, a street urchin, who is clearly like kind of trying to peer through the windows to see what he can see. Maybe there's nothing to it, but maybe there is. What do you do?
Yeah, I think Hank will walk up and sort of bend his knees a bit and get down closer to his level, and like just sort of innocuously at first peer in wherever he's peering, and then speak and surprise him and be like, yep, that's a pie shop.
And he turns and says, and you see him now, this boy, he has, I would say he has a hard look for his age. He has a very eye-watering smell. It manages to cut through the normal terrible smell of London. But he smiles and he says, well, I was just looking for the family that used to run this place. I haven't seen them around in the last week or so.
Me either. I was actually about to try to pay them a visit.
He's like, oh, well, the shop is closed if you want one of those pies.
Well, I have my ways of visiting places, let's say.
Oh yeah? He gets
Yeah,
kind of like excited look in his eyes, like, what do you mean?
You here for a pie, young boy?
No, I just wanted to see. If the family had returned. They were nice. I liked those figs. They were good people.
Oh, they do much for you? They give you a scrap here or there?
Yeah, Mrs. Figg, she was really nice to me.
And Hank nods and files that away. Well, if I see you around, maybe I'll have a little something for you then. I'm unfortunately fresh out of pies.
He says, so are you going in there?
That was the intention.
What are you trying to find?
Pies, mostly.
Well, I don't think there's going to be any pies in there. No one's been working the oven for over a week.
They always have a few back in the cupboards, and they keep for quite a while.
Well, I know the shop pretty well. Do you want some help?
Sure, I'd love some company.
And are you going in through the front or the back?
I think I'm going in through the front.
You can go into the front. You might have to it is locked at the front.
Mm-hmm.
The back is open. You could probably go through the back and then go up to the front, or you can just like maybe try to jimmy the lock or just bust it open.
Yeah, I think he would test the front door, and when he realized that it was locked, he'd either try to jimmy it if it was like loose in the hinge at all, and if not, he would just sort of lean back a little bit and then just shove his shoulder into it and just
I think that latter will work. The police know who you are, and they know that you are looking into this matter. And I think there's a police constable in the corner who will see you do that and just like very noticeably turn away, like he doesn't see you, busting into the place. The front counter of Figg's Pigs, we have a paint the scene question here, everyone. There are a few small tables and chairs. The smell of grease and burnt flour is quite strong. There's actually a little plaster statue of a pig in a chef's hat that greets you when you walk in. I paint the scene. How do we know that this was a popular pie shop when it was open?
So the walls are filled with like newspaper clippings of rave reviews.
I think they have like a plaque that says like kind of something about supplying the queen with pies for some form of I think maybe like a wedding anniversary or something.
I love the idea, the implication that the queen has eaten people. That's good.
I think that this pie shop is, especially like maybe the front of it, isn't terribly old. It's a fairly new structure, but the floorboards here by the front counter are all very well worn. They've seen a lot of foot traffic.
I think that there's a section on the wall where people signed after successfully eating the triple pig, some kind of large famous dish they were serving.
The triple pig has 3 G's in the word pig, so that's how you know. Good. I love it. So what's your approach here, Mr. Nelson? What do you do?
I think that for something like the counter area, I think he'll go through the cabinets around there and also like go through the like register or anywhere where there might be not just like money kept, but like any sort of invoices or stuff. See if there's anything interesting paperwork wise.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Go ahead and do the information with reason, I think.
Yeah, I keep going for these reason approaches and I don't have great reason anymore, but it's okay. Wow, both those dice fell off my table. Okay, let's try that again.
Actually, you know what? I think since you've made friends with this boy, his name is Rag, by the way, R-A-G-G. I think I'll make it a presence roll because he's helping you, right?
Okay. On the table. Well, that's helpful, but I don't think we'll change it at the end of the day. That's 2 2s on the dice. It's 4 plus 2, that is 6.
We will cut away from the scene with you hearing the approaching scrape of metal on the floor coming up from the back. So, Green, catch me up. Are you going to the Society Obscura as well, or are you doing something else?
I will follow Mr. Quinn, but I will also, I want to leave a letter with something or kind of a note with something in Mr. Teleford's room before we leave.
Oh, interesting. Should we, what is that letter? Like what's going on there?
Basically it's, so I want to leave this decorated box. Let's see, what is it exactly? A decorative box of ashes from Julia's grave. I want to leave this in Mr. Telford's room and say like, with kind of like a note, I acquired this at the cemetery at the grave of a certain house guest of ours. You might be able to do something with it.
Good. I don't think you have that yet in your possession, Mr. Talford, for this scene anyway. And I think you arrive at the Society Obscura first because you were already out in town, right? So you're at the Society Obscura, and it's a converted townhouse in Kensington. It has a sign on the outside, and it's with a little plaque that's, you know, a little notice that visitors are welcome. So you do have to ring though. Do you ring?
Yep.
The door is answered by a young man. This young man is, I would describe him as pretty, and he is wearing what appears to be, he looks like he's dressed like a Greek, like some sort of like Greek god. Like he has like a little tunic on, and he has a gold olive leaf little crown on his head, and he has like face paint that's, you know, sort of heightens his features a little bit, right? And he's wearing no shoes. And he opens the door and he says, yes, can I help you?
I'll introduce myself and say that, you know, I'm here from I'm here from Hargrave House, and we heard some things about the Whateley Camera, and we're just investigating.
He says, "Oh, I can see that you're already in costume. Are you here for that pirate shoot?"
Well, I wasn't, but now I might be.
He says, "Oh, well, it's just that you have a, patch over your
Okay,
eye."
right. Yeah, I get
He
it.
says, right. So I don't know anything about that specific camera. We have loads of cameras here at the Society Obscura. Right now, we are actually in the middle of a particular shoot. I am currently playing the Greek god Eros, and but you're welcome to come in and please have a seat. And there's like a little entry hall with a little couch on the side and things, potted plants and all sorts of stuff. He says, as soon as we're finished, I will have one of the Abernathys come and find you.
Well, I would love to watch this photo shoot. You make quite a striking Eros.
He says, "Oh, well, thank you very much. And I think that would be okay. He'll take you back." And indeed, you do see they take you to a room, and let's do a little paint the scene here. This room is the Olympus Room. It is a room in the Society's townhouse used for artistic photography, decorated to look like a scene from Greek myth. Because at least one of you has the cosmic passage marked, and Mr. Talford does, the question is this. Looking around this room, the Olympus Room, the actual Greek pantheon of gods is watching you right now. How do we know this as viewers, I guess, even if the characters don't know?
So I think there's an owl perched up on a perch in the corner. And as soon as Talford tries to go in, like his little raven buddy just books it and refuses to come into the room.
I didn't realize you had the raven with you.
Oh yeah, pretty much at all times.
I would have made a parrot joke, so I realized that. Good. Yeah, good.
I think that there are statues that as you move around the room, their heads like turn to follow you.
I think people kind of randomly start speaking in dactylic hexameter verse.
Nice, I like it.
I think there's a amphora there that was probably filled with wine or something that people keep pouring from, and people keep pouring from it, and it should be empty by now, but it's not.
So all these members of the Society Obscura are doing these things that are sort of being described here, Mr. Talford. They're all dressed in caftans and togas and tunics and things like that, right? And doing different scenes, and there's one woman who seems to be sort of guiding everything. She's wearing like a perfectly sheer black caftan, and her hair is done up, like braided to look like a crown on her head. And she's very dramatic, swooping arms and pointing this way and that. And, she says, "All right, and now it's time to, let's have Athena, Paris, all the goddesses, Paris, that's right, we're gonna make the choice here." And she says, "Periwinkle dear," that's the young guy who opened the door. "Periwinkle dear, you can be Paris for this one." And he's sort of like, they're all getting in a position, they're taking like pictures and all this stuff. And there's a bunch of people in there. There's probably like 24 people in the room, right? And what are you doing in the meantime while all this is going on? Because you're just watching. They're not really, paying too close attention to you.
So I think I'm more or less like trying to find someone who looks the least busy but is still involved that I could talk to.
Yeah, I like that. There is a man who seems to be hanging back a little bit like you. He is, let's see what, this is, you gather this is one of the Abernathys. The woman in the black caftan, that's Portia Abernathy, and this is her husband, Cyrus Abernathy. They seem to be in charge of Society Obscura. Cyrus Abernathy is wearing very, very interesting fashion. He's wearing a form-fitting white bodysuit, which is tight in all the right places, and there are silver cords wrapped around his arms, his legs and neck. And he keeps lifting this mask over his face as he's like watching things, almost like he's watching an opera, and he's holding glasses up to his eyes, but he's holding a mask up periodically. And it's a mask, it's a silver mask in the shape of a moon, not unlike the sun mask worn by the unusual character at the opium den. But you see him there just kind of like, you know, kind of taking it in, occasionally making comments. What do you do?
So I think I'll, strike up a conversation. I think he's wearing the perfect conversation starter. So
Yeah.
I'll remark on his fashion sense and all of that, and just kind of get a feel for his demeanor toward me.
He says, "Oh yes, yes. Well, everything about my costume today is very intentionally chosen. You see."
Well, that doesn't seem like the thing you just pull out of the closet and throw on because it's laundry day.
He smiles and says, "Yes, well, you see, the silver cords, they say that those who have managed to travel between the realms through the astral realm, they say that you are connected to the physical realm via a silver cord emanating from your belly. The silver cords in my outfit are merely they are meant to suggest this. As you can see, we take this sort of thing very, 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 very seriously. I like to imagine that photographs, they're a little bit like the astral plane. They're like their own little tiny pocket dimension, you see, a little tiny world parallel to our own. Do you believe in parallel worlds, sir?"
Oh, absolutely.
"Well, very good then. I do too. Parallel worlds, parallel threads in time. For example, the primordial past of this world, the time before there was light, it is still with us. It floats alongside us, and someday it may even call out to us. There are people in the city who are very, very keenly interested in this parallel world, and I consider myself among them. We study it very intensely."
So how do you go about studying something like that?
Well, in truth, it's mostly just a lot of talking.
Well, it seems like you have at least one avenue of study, a particular camera, I believe the Whateley Camera, perhaps?
He holds the moon mask up to his face, and even though you can't see his face, you know that he's smiling behind it. Mr. Quinn and Mr. Green, you will arrive a little bit later. This is after the Olympus photo shoot has wrapped up, and probably Mr. Talford is still chatting with Cyrus Abernathy. Do you ring the bell, or do you go in some other way?
I guess Green, they will ring the bell for, and kind of be ready to kind of introduce Mr. Quinn, present the visitor.
The door opens, and you are greeted by Periwinkle, this young man, except this time he is dressed in sort of kind of Louis XIV costume, waistcoat and breeches and fine silk stockings and powdered wig. This is not long after Mr. Talford got there. and blousey shirt with lace cuffs and things like that, and jeweled shoes. And he says, "Oh my goodness, so many visitors this afternoon. Are you here for a photo shoot? Have you reserved a time in one of the studios?"
No, this is Mr. Quinn, and he is presenting himself as a model for the photo shoot. I'm sure that nobody at the society will want to miss this opportunity, right? What was your name?
He says, "Oh, I'm Periwinkle Underwood. I would be happy to go fetch Mrs. Abernathy." And at that point, Mrs. Abernathy actually inserts herself into the doorway. She's still dressed in her sort of like flowing sheer black caftan, and she says, "Mr. Quinn, I know that name, and I certainly know that face. You are most welcome indeed. Periwinkle, step aside. Please come in, come in. It would be a delight and an honor to photograph you, sir."
I know, and I walk in and I drop. I imagine that we brought the plates from our sexy art nudes BDSM shoot, and I just like drop the plates in Periwinkle's hand and just like walk on in.
And Mrs. Abernathy, Portia, she says, "Well, this is turning out to be quite an interesting day." And she sort of like floats in behind you. She says, "What are you wearing right now, Mr. Quinn? How are you dressed?"
I put a link in the chat for everyone to see, but it is inspired. Well, it's just straight up Billy Porter. It's like an amazing, like tight, low cut white tuxedo with like the most outrageous bustle you've ever seen of white feathers.
White feathery bustle. I love it.
That like it's not like it's like a train, like it goes all the way down the ground. So you know what? It's maybe a little understated even for me, but it still makes an impact.
Portia says, "We were just getting ready to do a little bit of work in the Louis XIV studio, perhaps. I mean, this exquisite outfit, I think I see touches of the Rococo in the design. I think you would be a fantastic subject. Periwinkle, go and make room for Mr. Quinn." And Periwinkle goes off.
I think Green will kind of follow Periwinkle around a bit, kind of shadowing them, and because Green, they know of course that with these kind of, this is the kind of person that they will be able to learn a lot about what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of like walking around and kind of trying to get Periwinkle into a conversation maybe, and so.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. Let's go back to Mr. Nelson. Actually, let's take a little break. Let's take 5. Okay. David, we need clarification on when you say 1 o'clock. What time zone do you mean?
Yeah, I realized that after I said that Central Time. So in
right.
about 45 minutes.
Okay,
yeah.
great. All right, thanks. So I want to just do some housekeeping on that last vulnerable move scene. First of all, conditions. Did any conditions get cleared, do we think, based off what happened in that one scene?
So I have the intrigued by Mr. Talibird thing, and my attention has definitely shifted more to Julius now. Like my obsession has been replaced, so I wonder if that
Sure, I'll take it. Yeah,
I think maybe Julius is sport. I think it will come back, but for now, I think because the protection of Mr. Quinn is back, I might have a little bit of reprise from that.
And what clue did you stumble on, Mr. Quinn?
I think that I noticed as we're packing up that something I've never noticed before, that our Hargrave House camera appears to be an exact replica of the Whateley camera.
Oh, interesting.
So I think that maybe someone tried to make another one.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay, nice.
That might be helpful to replicate the process.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Okay, let's pick back up with Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson, you hear the dragging of metal and footsteps coming from the kitchen. What do you do?
I'm gonna put a hand on my revolver, just in case.
The boy, Rag, says, I think that's Obert. I like the figs, but I like him the least of them.
And Hank maybe gives the kid a slight smile and says, I think that's the same for me. Obert, is that you?
Obert Figg steps out of the shadows to where you can kind of see him.
Mm-hmm.
He's wearing a long, blood-stained apron, and he has what can only be described as a thin, oily smile. And he has this large butcher's knife as long as your leg, which he drags behind him on the ground. And he says, they call you the Beast, do they not?
Some choose to. Do you have a moniker?
I am called the Blade.
Well, here we are, two people with, I would say, suitable names.
The Beast and the Blade. So, what do I have to do to convince you and your colleagues at Hargrave House to leave me and my family alone?
Well, I think first you would have to pay more than Scotland Yard. That's the first thing. The second thing would be to cease doing what I fear you've just come from doing.
He smiles. Oh, Mr. Beast. You know, there are only two states of being in this world. A piglet suckling at the teat of mock, swollen and happy, or food for the trough. Which will you be today, I wonder? Will you join me at the breast of the great he-sow, or shall we grind up your blood and bones for the slop?
I think he's gonna draw his revolver, point at him, and say, well, you see, I'm the one who plans on feasting today.
This is a day move. What are you afraid is going to happen right now if you fail or lose your nerve?
I think I'm worried that his blade is going to be faster than my revolver, and in case a conflict comes about.
I think that's probably right. It's a day move, so I can't make it necessarily worse. Let's go ahead and roll with, I think it's probably composure at this point. And
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Composure. And let me take a look at your conditions as well. And I don't think your conditions apply, so you can go ahead and roll normal.
Yeah, and I'm marking my, which one is that? That's the Colt Navy revolver, 1851.
Oh, you don't have to mark it. Do you have the move, the fastest gun on the
I
list? Do. Okay, yeah, you don't actually have to mark it. You always get advantage when you use it. So.
And I didn't even need that advantage. That's an 11 on the die.
Nice. And your composure is 0, so 11. We'll come back to that moment. Mr. Talford, you're having a chat with Cyrus Abernathy. This is after everybody's kind of cleared out at this point, going off to shoot other things. You'll overhear Green and Mr. Quinn coming into the house as well. But it sounded like you were trying to get Mr. Abernathy to open up about the Whateley Camera. Do the information move with presence, I think. I think presence is the right role here.
Okay. That is an 8.
I'm going to give you your clue, but the complication is going to be, I'm going to lean on your taste for it condition. Something about Mr. Abernathy, about Cyrus Abernathy, seems delicious. Some particular part of his body. I'd like to know which and what you do about it.
I think it's just like his general like smell. Like I can smell like his sweat just smells sweet.
I'm going to give you the condition, a nose for it. And let me take a look at the clue list real quick. He says, you mean the Whateley Camera? Yes, yes. We are aware of the exceptional nature of one of our pieces of equipment, the one you speak of. Truth be told, there is said to be a very particular way of using the camera, a series of strange esoteric steps that one must take in order to get it to reveal itself, its true power. I regret to say that the procedure tends to leave your mind. All of us here at the Society Obscura, we dreamt of the steps separately and individually, and then we came together. And the subject of the photograph, well, she is no longer with us. We believe that this was the camera expressing its full power. But almost as soon as we took the photo, the procedure began to spill out of our minds like water spilling from an urn that's been knocked over. And yet there are still a few splashes at the bottom of the vessel. I don't know the precise role that it plays, but well, I'm sure you have smelled that warm, fragrant smell that seems to dominate. It's the smell of cinnamon and nutmeg and clove, very fragrant, warm spices. We have not been able to shake that smell ever since we took that photograph. That's your clue,
It
though.
is pumpkin spice season.
Indeed. That's your clue. Warm spice smells. And as he's talking about the smell, you're smelling him. How are you responding? What are you doing?
I think this gives me an idea, and I'm going to propose that like I have a way that we could see where what was her name? Penelope?
The actress Penelope, yeah. He didn't name her, but you know. Yeah.
I think that I have a way we could see where she is. And so I want to like recruit him to help me in a ritual.
He says, this is a very, very interesting turn of events. I would be delighted. I can tell that, like me, you are a journeyman, Mr. Taliford. You seek the worlds beyond this world. And he puts the moon mask over his face. And I would be delighted to travel there with you.
All right, well, we just need a private place to do it. And we can get going.
He says, well, let's just go straight to the most logical place. We have a room, a special room. We call it the Astral Plane Room. Come with me. Meanwhile, Mr. Quinn and Green. Green, you said you were following around Periwinkle, yes? Periwinkle goes into a small dressing room off the side of the main hall. And he says, do you want him to know you're following him, or are you sort of hanging back?
I think it's not so much kind of stealthily following them, but really just kind of following along as it were natural, kind of engaging in conversation.
Mm. So he's going on, and he's, of course, he's dressed like a sort of, kind of, 18th century dandy or whatever, right? This powdered wig, and he's got a beauty mark and all this other stuff. And he says, well, the Abernathys, they're very, very nice to me, of course. I've worked with them for a little over a year now, and they're wonderful employers. I like that I get to, well, it's not just service, it's there's a creative aspect to it as well. And I find that I'm satisfied both creatively and, well, let's just say I have a servant's heart. To you, Green.
Oh, it's I'm sure it's a great place to work. And you said there's some sort of Greek photo shoot going on.
We're already done with that. We're already moving on to the Louis XIV shoot.
I would have loved to see this. Andramo ene pemusa polytropon hos malapola. The Odyssey. This ancient Greek. I've always been so interested in. I would have loved to see this. I wonder there. My employer, Mr. Quinn. They were interested. They saw this wonderful actress at one of the shows, and I heard she might also have been a visitor at your place here, and
he spins around
if,
on his heel, and he's wearing kind of like bejeweled, jewel festooned high-heeled shoes. He spins around, he stomps his heel, and he says, "You're talking about that Penelope Levy, aren't you?"
Well, yes. Well,
just between you and me, the less we say about her, the better. Frankly, I'm not even sure what the Abernathys saw in her. I wouldn't even say she has. She doesn't have a bad side or a good side. She has no sides. She's certainly not, well, let's just say she doesn't really photograph like me, that's for sure. I, for one, am happy that she disappeared off to wherever she just disappeared to. She was just,
well, if you say so,
she was just holding us back creatively.
It seems everything around here who's supposed to be here. I mean, you must have seen hundreds of photo shoots, so I'm sure if you say that she didn't have the thing kind of that you need.
He says, will you hold on for a moment? And he goes into a little, like a broom closet or something, like a little room. And you can hear him changing clothes in the room. You can hear him tossing shoes aside, clomp, clomp, and all this other stuff. And he's still talking to you. He says, yes, well, she's gone now, and that's the important thing. Back to the stage, wherever she belongs.
Yes, maybe. I mean, but the way, on the one hand, we might have our own opinions, but on the other hand, if your employer chooses that they are interested in someone or they like something, it's not my place to judge. So I hope Mr. Quinn will be able to see her again in one of these shows. And in any case, if you say it's good that she's gone, how long ago was it that she?
He comes out and he says, oh, I guess, she's been gone for about a week now, I suppose, or thereabouts. I don't know. I'm so busy. I don't really keep track of the people who come in and out of the Society Obscura. I mean, there are so many people, especially today. He comes out, he's dressed in like a sort of like Tales of the Arabian Nights getup with like puffy pants and a turban and all that stuff, right? And a little vest. And he says, he's going off. You can keep following him if you wish, but he's going off to do what he's doing. He takes you into another room This is the Maharaja's palace room, and he's like moving things around, setting things up for another photo shoot. We do have a paint the scene question for the Maharaja's palace room. This is another room in the society's townhouse used for artistic photography, decorated to look like a Maharaja's palace. This room is wildly colorful, but the camera can never capture it. Describe something particularly vivid in the room that people in the future will not be able to properly appreciate in black and white or sepia tones.
This is for everyone, right? I think that there's a collection of flowers on a table, which they were distinctly chosen and then placed to, I think they're all shades of like a purple or a lavender, but they go from like lightest hue to darkest, and it's like a perfect gradient. And on black and white, it's hardly going to show up at all, the difference.
So I think there's gels over the lights that just like, you know, bathe the room in different colored light, in different areas have like, you know, a different just glow that kind of suffuses the whole area.
I think there's like a display of fruit, and they're all like very special colors, like, you know, dark tomatoes and kind of apples in purple, and all of the stuff that you just wouldn't recognize. You just probably think it was just a regular color that food normally is, but they kind of procured it from all these exotic places, or maybe even grew it themselves somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are these lush, like silk fabrics draped everywhere that are like infused with something glittery, shiny, that catches the light, but that you wouldn't be able to see on the camera.
We'll cut away from that scene for a moment as you are stepping in there with periwinkle green. And Mr. Quinn, you're in the Louis XIV room, and other members of the society are either they're just wrapping up with a photograph, or they're kind of like they're just changing on the spot, you know, taking off corsets and wigs and sort of like, you know, moving, getting the costuming around. And when you step in, everyone like just stops and they're like, oh, you know. And Portia whispers over your shoulder, "You have a way of catching everyone's attention, Mr. Quinn."
I don't acknowledge it. I'm going to like walk into some kind of decoration. I want to pick up like a lamp or something like that and like inspect it. And I'm going to be like, oh, it's a knockoff. I'm just going to set it back down. Like,
Portia says, "Well, the camera captures much, but I don't think it can discern whether an antique is actually an antique or not."
But I can. Well, are we going to do this or what?
She says, yes. And she says, here. And she sort of like calls over to a couple of the other members. Lourdes, Julia, Brianna, come over here. Milosh, yes, come over here. Let's put together the composition for this particular photo. I think Mr. Quinn will be the center of attention, of course. And I think the camera, you are the type that the camera will really love, Mr. Quinn. And there we go. Julia, you stand there. And Sanabu, yes, you come too. And she's sort of arranging everyone in the picture, right? And what are you doing in the meantime while this is happening?
While that's happening, I am going around and redoing everything that's been done in this room, particularly to make it a much more sort of like erotic experience, like lowering the lights, putting candles on, like just making it filled with with all of the things that will make people already in love with me very much more in love with me. I also am repositioning people. She'll like put someone in a thing and I'll be like, no, that's not going to do. Then I'll like, move them around.
I love it. I love it. It's great. Finally, we see you there in the center. Perhaps by the end, you're sort of draped on a chaise lounge or something with fawning admirers, right? And Portia is there. She has the little flash powder, light thing, and she's getting ready to take the picture. And as she's adjusting the position of the camera, she's saying, the camera, it first sees us, Mr. Quinn, but then it reveals us. Many people, of course, don't like what they see in the image because they know it is the truth. One cannot hide from the lens, no matter how hard one tries. And we hear the sizzle and pop of the flash powder. And we'll just cut away from there for now. Mr. Taliford, you are brought into the Astral Plane room, probably Cyrus's favorite studio. It's a strange room painted in dreamy grays and silvers. Paint the scene, everyone. There are objects arranged all over that seem to be from another world or time. Describe one.
I think that there are strange, tiny, slim computers that they wouldn't know are computers, but what we would recognize as like tablets or something. And, they light up when you touch them or move them.
So there's an orrery. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but the mechanical solar system.
Yeah.
But it has two suns in the middle that the planets revolve around.
I think there's a cube that is kind of glowing and hovering above a table.
Sorry to take a quick call. What was the prompt for this?
Oh, the prompt is in the astral plane room, there are objects all over that seem to be from another time or place. Describe one.
There's a slap chop. Just sitting there on one of the tables.
I love it. Good. The orrery, the slap chop, the iPad, and a floating cube, among other things. Very good. All these strange objects, Mr. Taliford. I mean, it's a wonder, this room. Bizarre shaped things, things that light up and glow, things that float. But, are you impressed or not? I mean, you've seen some crazy shit in your time because of your profession.
I mean, I think it's impressive to see all of this stuff gathered together because it all none of it fits, right? It's not themed or anything. It's just a very weird, eclectic collection of mysterious things. So I think it's impressive.
Cyrus lowers the moon mask and says, "So, what do you think?"
It's a very impressive collection.
Well, so you want to see the camera, I suppose?
Well, I thought maybe I could show you something.
Oh, that's right. That's right. A ritual, yes? What is the nature of this ritual? Are we going to be in contact, in communion with the outer gods?
Well, I think that, there's there are spirits around that are always eager to help, and they have access to realms that we can't perceive. So, so okay. So using the spirits, I think they can show us where Penelope went.
He says, this is fascinating. Very, very intriguing. So what do we do first?
So I think Baruch the Crow has rejoined us, and he's bouncing on the slap chop. And like, I think I just have like my handy bag of Eucharist, and like I take one and I give it to the crow, and then I take another one and put it in my mouth, and then grab Mr. Abernathy behind the head and like and kiss him and force the Eucharist into his mouth. And I think that's it. Like that's the ritual.
Nice. Go ahead and roll your rites of salt and smoke. I think because you're so close to him with a taste for it and a nose for it, I'm going to put you at disadvantage. It's distracting you.
So the fact that I have my crow helping me out should cancel
Balance
that
it
out,
out.
right?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, that's snake eyes. So that's 5.
Indeed. You perform your ritual, and the chandelier in the room, all the lights blow out, plunging the room into darkness. And you can feel something wet, oily, touching your neck, touching your hand, wrapping tightly around your thigh. Tentacle, tightening and slick. Abernathy says, I don't know what you're doing, Mr. Taliford, but I can feel it. We are not alone. You have made contact. You have made contact with the outer worlds. This journeyer, this traveler, this visitor in the dark, they are wrapping themselves around me, drawing me in. I can feel my breath leaving my body. It is horror and ecstasy in one. And then the candles on the chandelier all light again. And you see Mr. Abernathy's broken body laid at your feet, the moon mask shattered in two. Take the condition, the traveler.
I think I'm gonna use a mask.
Rewind.
I didn't want to knock you out of that.
No, it's good. No, I love it. Choose past or future as you wish. That will make it a 7 to 9. And instead, your right goes off. What are you trying to accomplish here?
The observe another time or place.
Okay, good. And what's your complication that you want? You have to pick.
The magic has a problematic side effect.
Very good. Okay, well, so describe what we're seeing. Like, what are you trying to see?
So, I mean, I'll leave the contents of the vision up to you, but I think like I'm just keyed in on like show me Penelope, right?
Very good.
And so I think like, and I think even as I'm like our vision starts to blur, right, as like the Eucharist leaves my mouth and goes into Mr. Abernathy's, and like I just chomp down on his lip right at the end of it, enough to draw blood, and then like we're in the vision.
I love it. I'm gonna make. I know you didn't choose the condition one, but I'm gonna give you a condition as the problematic side effect. You Actually, no. We'll keep this. We'll hold off on that yet. We'll see. We'll talk about what you see in a moment. Let's cut back over to Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson, you got an 11, which means you have control of the scene. Mechanically, you cannot kill or destroy or capture Obert, but I am curious just how you get yourself out of this pickle.
Yeah, I think I think he goes to raise his blade, and I think I just shoot him in the shoulder. Trying to make him drop it, potentially, and like basically shoot him in the shoulder and then pull back the hammer to rotate to the next cylinder.
If you want to bump it to a 12, I'll make him drop the sword and you can take it as an item.
Ooh, yeah.
Since you would get a bonus.
Yeah, I'll do that.
He'll drop the blade and he'll kind of basically run out the back. And Rag says the Victorian street urchin equivalent of "that was sick," but the blade is there. You can add it to your personal quarters. It is Obert's blade, Obert's cleaver. And Rag says, "Well, the police will be here any moment. They'll have heard that gunshot. We should get out of here." And he's like getting ready to leave.
I'll nod and say, I'll be right with you. I just need to go and check upstairs.
Very good. We'll come back to that. Green, you are in the Maharaja's palace room with Periwinkle, who's dressed like Aladdin, and
I think Green. So Periwinkle has been talking about, like, that they basically know about, they are themselves a great model and all of these things, and they seem to know a lot about kind of putting on a scene and kind of stagecraft. So I think Green, they will take out a manuscript that they have been carrying around of a comedy that they're writing, and they will say, like, like you said, let's not talk about that woman anymore, but you must have seen all these wonderful actors and models in here, and you know so much about this, so maybe you can have a look at this, and maybe there has been someone here over the last weeks that might be somehow great for this part, that I'm writing this play, and maybe you can recommend someone to me that has been here over and that you have observed up close. And I think Green, they want to kind of know something about if there's anyone that has been around that might be a clue to kind of what happened.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's good. Do the information move with presence. No, composure.
All right, so I'm going to mark the manuscript for advantage with composure. All right. Let's see. That's a 12.
Very good. He's going through it and he says, "Well, I mean, this is a really interesting." And he's reading through it. He gets to a joke and he kind of chuckles, like, he says, "Listen, I can tell that you and your employer are here for reasons you are not being completely truthful about. I don't think you're here just to take pictures and talk about actresses. I think you want to know more about what happens at the Society Obscura, and I don't exactly know why, except that, well, I don't blame you, because it's a very fascinating place and we have a lot of really interesting characters who come through here." And at that point, he says, Speaking of scripts, and he sets yours down and goes and retrieves another script for a play. He hands it to you. It's a play you've never heard of. It's called Ecstasies of the Pythia. He says, this was delivered shortly before Miss Levy disappeared. It's a very fascinating thing. I've read through it several times now, and I can't make sense of it. But it was the inspiration for today's Mount Olympus photo shoot, that's for sure.
And who delivered it to the society? Do you know?
He says, well, I took the delivery, but I didn't catch her name. The only thing I remember is she was an older woman, lovely, wearing a very, very striking blue taffeta gown, and she had a sapphire around her neck. The gem was real. I've seen plenty of costume jewelry in my time, and this gem was certainly real. Probably, my gosh, was probably, I imagine, it'd be enough to buy a palace with. And she was just walking around like it was no big deal, wearing such a thing. But she wanted us to have this.
Did she want you to stage some parts of it in the rooms here?
She gave us no explanation. She said only that night, when members of the society dreamed, they would know what to do with it.
Very mysterious. This seems to be such a interesting place that you run here.
And that is your mastermind clue, which is that Theodora delivered the Ecstasies of the Pythia script to the Society Obscura. Mr. Quinn, once your session is ended and everyone's sort of like loosening their corsets and kind of decompressing a little bit, what are you doing in the meantime? Portia's fawning over you. That was amazing. You look fantastic. And so
Yes.
forth.
Yes, of course I did. You know, I'm sure you have things that are actually of quality here. I kind of gesture back to these like fake props, like you know, old cameras.
She says, well, we do have a very, very special camera that came into the society's possession a number of weeks ago. It's considered the first of its type. Very, very rare. Would you like to see it?
I very much would.
I would love to photograph you with it someday, perhaps tonight.
I'm sure that could be arranged.
She says, well, for now then, just a little teaser. And she takes you out of that room and leads you down a little hall to a back staircase. And you go up the staircase to a small room. She opens the room, and standing in this little closet-sized room, lit by a small gas lamp or a small gaslight, on the wall, sconce. You see the camera sitting on a pedestal as if it's waiting to take a picture of you. What do you do?
I turn to her and I say, leave us. And then I like shove her out of the room and close the door.
And now you're in this small room with the camera alone. Then what?
I guess I'd like to look at it.
Sure, you can examine it. Give me an information move with sensitivity.
Oh, that's my bad one. I think. Oh no, I made it better. Okay. That's a 7.
You're looking at the camera, handling it, I presume. And as you do so, you notice that there's a smudge on the brass. Some kind of viscous substance, deep, deep purple viscous substance smudged on the side. The complication is quite simply that you are, I'm going to give you a condition that where essentially you have to be, you feel compelled to be photographed by the camera. You must, you want it. You can type that however you want. Let's update our clues here. And Mr. Taliford, you see Penelope behind Cyrus in the darkness. She's wandering back and forth, left and right. She has what appears to be a pyramid floating over her head, and it's spinning and rotating. And she looks directly at you. She looks directly at you, and her expression of, her blank, lost expression becomes one of recognition. Your crow flies off your shoulder and lands on her wrist. And she draws it close to her and she whispers to it. And then she sends it back. But it doesn't come immediately back to you. It flies off into the darkness. And Mr. Abernathy says, "What did you see? What happened?"
I think I'm curious about what he saw, actually. I think I'm going to turn the question around and ask what he saw.
Good. He says, "I didn't see anything, but this appeared in my hand." And he holds up a small bronze pyramid, a miniature version of what you just saw. And he hands it to you, and it's warm to the touch. That's actually your clue. And And I think we don't have Mr. Nelson currently because David had to step away, but that's okay because we can kind of just retcon his scene and say that he left the pie shop. That'll be fine. I think that will be the end of the day phase. I didn't leave anything hanging, did I? Green, you got all your information, correct? Okay. Let's go to the dusk. We'll check in about the quickening later. Ghost of Hargrave House, day work.
So are we back at Hargrave House then, or Green at least?
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
are we
you
still
can
at
be
the
back.
society?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, I think Mr. Quinn has to start using items, but that's another thing, as have all the others, because there's just nothing marked. So I guess there's no the Ghost of Hargrave House. Then let's see. I think I think Green will start to read the Ecstasies of the Pythia, and ask a question about that to the keeper. Let's see what it is. Yeah, very simply, who's the author? Is there any author that's apparent from reading?
Is this
or maybe a style or something?
Is this the day work
to be
move?
recognized? I think I think so, because it's like you learn something interesting about an active threat. Ask the keeper any question you like; they will answer it truthfully
Good.
and completely, or in the form of a clue. So basically, I think the situation is that Green is kind of they are sitting down and reading the Ecstasies of Pythia because that's kind of intrigued them. And the question is there either an author marked in the book, or is there maybe a style that Green might recognize because they know about theater and plays?
There is, there's no indication who wrote the play. However, the pages, I mean, it's kind of presented like a loose bound book, right? And there is something being used as a bookmark. The thing being used as a bookmark is a cinnabar pendant necklace, which is a clue. And do you have anything else on that move that you have to do?
I don't think so. I think that's
you choose one. Got it. Okay, great. All right. And then let's keep going here. Don't think Unquenchable Thirst is going to come up there. So let's talk about, I don't think we have any custom moves that need resolving. And so let's do Hargrave House, paint the scene. Let's talk about
maybe a place where Green might have sat down to read the book.
Yeah, the library. Let's do the library because it kind of piggybacks nicely with Society Obscura. Of all the rooms in Hargrave House, none feel more unstuck than this one. As you enter the library, what do you see or experience that feels a little off?
I think it's just too big for the house. Like basically, it's a huge library, and it just couldn't fit into that part of the building.
So there's something weird with like the gravity in the room almost. Like things don't feel the right weight, and people constantly like trip over their own feet because they lift up their feet too hard. And just in general, like people are very clumsy in the room and everything feels off.
I think that the top row of the bookshelves, in my mind, I imagine the bookshelves like wrap around the room when you gotta climb up for those cool ladders. If you get to the very top, I think the top row are all books yet to be published, like they're contemporary books from now, and they look that way. They look like they would be published today.
Interesting. And now everybody says what they're going to do tonight. So what do you think? Mr. Quinn, are you going back to be photographed by the Whateley camera?
I feel like I should, but I really wanted to confront Julius.
Choices. Take Julius with you.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. I will force him to come with me.
Mr. Talford, what about you?
Yeah, I also had like competing plans with Julius versus a beacon in the dark, which I think I'm just going to do the beacon in the dark because we haven't seen that yet. So
Okay, it's a fun move. So yeah, that's good. What about you, Green?
I'd love to do so Mr. Quinn, are you going are you going to Julius, or kind of yeah?
I'm going to acquire Julius and then go back.
Okay. I think Green wants to be part of that as well, and wants to be particularly subservient to Mr. Quinn in front of Julius. That's kind of the plan for the night.
And we'll sort out what Mr. Nelson's doing when David gets back. Janice Mask prompts. You can wait until the dawn phase, or you can do it now if you wish, Mr. Talbert.
I can do mine now. So
okay. What's the prompt?
It is narrate a flashback to the time when you were in your mother's womb that shows even then dark entities were interested in you. And so I think we see this monastery, or I guess it would be a nunnery in some rolling hills out somewhere in the countryside, and you see like this heavily pregnant nun who walks through the gates, and she has a basket that she's going to town to shop, and she walks through the gates and immediately just yells out and calls out for help and falls to the ground. And some of the other sisters hear her and run out and drag her back through the gates, and she's clutching her stomach, and they sort of you can see her gown is shredded on her across her stomach, and you can see the claw marks in her stomach.
Thank you. The unseen. Tonight we're going to do tonight let's do hold on, let me check the lines and veils real quick. Okay, tonight we're going to do A Night at the Grand Guignol. A Night at the Grand Guignol. This one is going to be, because there's several like that, we're going to do A Night at the Grand Guignol, Good for Her. This is on the 1, 2, 3, the fourth row down, second column. Everyone does paint scene. Let me read it first. A Night at the Grand Guignol, good for her. Every class of people in London is represented in the audience at the Theatre Grand Guignol. They have come to watch a production of Good for Her, a story about a nanny that murders the upper class children in her care. Paint the scenes for everyone. Second one is for Dan. Then Alicia. Then Adrian. Let's take 5. We'll come back and have our night phase. A Night at the Grand Guignol. Everyone, as the limelights pop to life and the crimson curtain is raised, what do we see as we scan the stage that shows how the nanny lives a modest life compared to the rich family she serves?
So I think the play opens at breakfast, and you can see like this stage is actually split in half, and one half is like vases full of flowers on the table, and the family is eating, and then on the other half, she's eating alone in the servants' quarters out of a little bowl of gruel.
I think there are holes in her plain brown leather boots.
I think she ties her hair back with a string, like a plain old string.
Good. David, let's catch you up real quick. We are just now diving into the night phase. And we just kind of retconned that last day phase and said that you left the pie shop when Rag left. And we are doing the night phase now. What would you want to be doing tonight, Mr. Nelson?
Sure. Should I roll for my quickening first?
Yeah, roll quickening too, please. Thanks.
Yeah, that's very, very good. That's 11 total.
Okay, nice. So you have it under control. So what would you do tonight?
So I think Hank would go hunting for Obert.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Whereabout? Like, are you just like going to go like roaming around different part of the city, or?
So since I shot him in the shoulder, I'm sure some blood spilled there, and
good.
I'm going to try to track him. Especially I got these
Nice.
heightened senses. I'm going to try to track him.
Okay, I'm into that. So
should we answer our question about him?
Yeah, exactly. Should we?
I was going to say, like, I think maybe we
Figure out
will
where
answer
they-
that. Yeah. As part of
Answer-
my phase.
what question about who? Sorry.
The question about Obert.
To resolve the threat.
Oh, to actually, yeah. Well, do you have a theory here?
I do.
Okay, what is it?
So relying on our clues of a collection of progressively smaller skeletal left hands and the long blonde hair folded and collected, I was going to add to that clue that there's like maybe several sets of these, and like you can tell like the hair is similar, but like different lengths a little bit. It's a little bit coarser, some different. And I think that Obert likes to kill whole families, and
Okay.
so he like the collections of hands are all of one family, and the hair the same way. Everybody was blonde. And
Oh, nice. Okay, that's interesting. I like that. So, murdering blonde families. Great.
or just I think maybe that's what we found, right? But like just whole family units.
Got it.
Everybody. He likes killing all of them.
Flat roll. Take it away, David. Go ahead and roll that.
Well, that's a flat roll of a 4.
Yeah. Taking a look at the move. Answer a question on a 6-. The answer is incorrect, and I will react. That is going to change the night phase dramatically, unless you all mark Janus Mask right now.
Does everyone want to mark a mask over it, or do we want to roll with whatever happens?
I'd mark a mask, but I
Let
don't
me
have
see if
strong
there's-
opinions either way.
Let me see if there's a Whateley Camera specific mask too that I forgot to mention. There's not. There's no mask on the Whateley Camera. So, yeah.
If everyone else wants to roll a mask, then I will, or to mark a mask, I will happily mark a mask. But I also, I mean, I'm not the one who's probably in danger at this point in time, but I kind of want to see it play out.
I'd be willing to mark a mask. If I'd also be willing to see what happens. I don't know. I'm sort of game for either.
Well, so that sounds like no decision.
What about you decide
then? So what did everybody? What was the? Everybody was just cool with either, basically. Yeah, I think in that case you should decide, David.
Okay. Gosh, I'm burning through masks so quickly, but I'm actually really interested. If I'm going to mark a mask here, I'm really interested on marking the darkened threshold, which is pretty interesting for Hank. I think I'll do that because I do want to take care of this. But yeah, I'm going to mark a mask.
Everybody has to contribute in order for this to get bumped up to a 7 to 9, in which case it is correct. It's just that stopping Obert's going to be dangerous. So, right. So now let's kind of, how are you going to, the opportunity is you get to lure Obert to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how are you doing that?
Yeah. So I think I'll essentially, my goal will be to like track him to get close enough to like roughly where he is. And then, or actually, if I can figure out like who he's targeting, then I'm gonna like get them out of there and just be waiting for him for when he would show up.
I think the idea is that you have the opportunity to use the like a lure of a family, maybe with blonde hair. So maybe you get close and then like you get a family to sort of like draw his attention, maybe.
Yeah.
Does your dirty little kid have a family you could use?
Like a particular family that Hank might be close.
I think an extra detail is
no.
like maybe specifically like families that are troubled, like especially like we know that the Figs have like a good relationship as a family, like they are sort of closely knit, and so maybe Obert views like families with a poor dynamic or families with problems as being like something that should just be eradicated, that they shouldn't exist or something like that.
Well, that's really interesting. Yeah, I like it. Okay, so I guess that we'll just kind of start your night phase with you telling us about that family, basically.
Yeah.
I think that'll work, and kind of how you're getting them into position to lure Obert to you. Okay, so let's dive back into the night phase. All right, so we've seen a little bit of the Grand Guignol, and Mr. Talford's gone out to roam the streets. Mr. Nelson's gone out to catch Obert. Green and Mr. Quinn are theoretically going to the Society Obscura with Julius. Before you have a chance to do any of that, though, there's a ring, 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 ring at the front door.
Green, you gonna get that or what?
I don't think Talford and Nelson are there. It's just Quinn and Green right now.
Green, they're going to the door and kind of opening. We are kind of almost ready to leave, or at least talk to. So I think it's a bit kind of like looking, like maybe looking through, like maybe there's this, like a hole in the door to kind of see who is there.
Before you have a
kind
chance,
of an inconvenient time.
Before you have a chance to really respond or do that, Julius is like running down the stairs quickly, like he says, that's for me, Green. I'll take care of it. And he opens the door, and standing in the doorway are three people. A young woman, very pretty, dressed in, actually dressed like kind of masculine, with a like sort of like wearing a like a riding jacket and like riding pants and boots. And she has two men with her. And Julia says, "Tatiana, it's so good to see you. Who are your friends?" And the girl, Tatiana, says, "Oh, this is Taffy and Topper. They're over from America. Just staying with Mummy and me." And Julia says, "Well, come in, come in. We're gonna have a wonderful night." And they're all coming into the house. Green, what are you doing?
I think Green is watching this from like the top of the stairs. And they are moving back into like the shadow of a corner or something, and trying to overhear what Julius is talking about with these three while they pass.
Oh, that's good. We'll come back to that. Quinn, you can hear the commotion downstairs. What do you do?
I guess I assume I'm in my bedroom, having prepared for the evening. I got to get ready for my photo shoot. And so I'm going to come out, I'm going to descend the stairs, and not very happy. So I'm just going to say, "Julius, can I speak with you for a moment, please?"
The young woman, Tatiana, she steps past Julius when she sees you on the stairs, and she says, "You must be Mr. Quinn."
I'm sorry, this is Mr. Quinn. He is the main attraction here. That they are, he is so glad to welcome you to Hargrave House. And he's the master here, kind of looking a side look to Julius. And we were just about to start the night, and we are so happy about this wonderful company. So I think Green kind of stepped out of the shadow again. Yeah.
Julius gives you a smirk, and we'll cut over to Mr. Talford. Mr. Talford, where do you go walking? You're muted, Dan.
So I don't think I have any real destination. I'm just like, I think my crow's flying around, and I'm just wandering through the streets. I think I end up by the docks at some point. That's just where my consciousness brings me.
Yeah, good. So the move says, if we read it here, it says, when you walk the streets of London at night, your consciousness spreading across the city like a vast spider web. What's that like?
So I think that I'm really tuning in on what the spirits are saying. Like, normally it's just kind of like babbling and like they're all trying to talk at once. But if you really focus, you can like isolate what different of these spirits are saying. And so I think that's what I'm doing. I'm just wandering in the directions of the things that sound interesting.
Nice, good. Go ahead and get the roll on the table. Sensitivity.
Oh, yeah, that's a 14.
Nice. And it says, on a hit, you are immediately confronted by a threat or a personified danger related to the threat. You may ask them 2 questions from the list below. They will not answer directly, but rather in the form of a clue. On a 10 plus, the threat or danger departs as soon as the questions are answered. And how interesting. You are walking down the street. I can decide who I want you to encounter right now. Oh. stepping out of the shadows is Penelope Levy with the pyramid spinning over her head, and she holds up her arm, and your crow lands on her arm, as in the previous vision. And she says, I do not know where I am, but I am drawn to this place right now. What would you have of me? We'll cut there. Mr. Nelson, tell us about the family.
Yeah, I think it is the family of the kid who we met earlier. I think they live in a fairly squalid home. I think that there's this kid has like 4 siblings, all of varying ages and sizes, and I think that the mom is nowhere to be seen if she's still alive at all, and I think the father is not pleasant to be around, and is honestly more associated with the bottle in his hand than he is with his kids, and I think, yeah.
How are you going to draw Obert to them?
So I know he's in the area because I tracked him roughly to here, and I'm just going to take his cleaver, and I'm just gonna like jam it down in their front lawn.
Nice. Let's go back to the Theatre Grand Guignol. Dan, describe Act 1, in which the 2 children are very abusive toward the nanny.
So I think we see them, she's trying to teach them like basic reading, and she has a chalkboard, and they're constantly running around as she's like writing out sentences on the chalkboard. And I think like the last thing we see is one of the kids picks up a like poker from the fireplace, and you see it's like painted orange at the end, and he just jabs her in the butt right as the scene finishes.
Very good. So, Green and Mr. Quinn. Julius has guests, but apparently they're Mr. Quinn's guests now. And Tatiana says, well, I'm delighted. I, of course, know you well, Mr. Quinn. My mother speaks of you often.
I'm just gonna like toss a look to Green and wait for him to tell me who this person and her mother are, because he keeps my diary.
I think Green kind of says like, well, this is Tatiana and her friends, and they were here to visit our friend Julius, but of course whoever comes here has to is of course a guest of the master of the house.
And Topper is looking around and he says, and what a house it is. My goodness, we don't really have architecture like this back over in America. It's a bit creepy, if I'm being honest. No offense, of course. And Taffy says, yes, I'm getting a distinct, no, I don't know, like a kind of Hunchback of Notre Dame sort of vibe. That's a book people read, right?
Does everyone want to retire to the saloon? I will make a fire and...
Tatiana says, well, I'm absolutely famished. I could certainly go for a bite to eat, but salon sounds fine. And she takes Julius's arm and she says, and she's kind of walking Julius toward the salon. And she says, Julius, it's been ages since you've come to see us at Brathwaite Hall. And they are going into the salon. What are you doing, Mr. Quinn?
I'm going to extend my hand to my ungloved hand to whoever said that our house resembled something from the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
That would be Taffy.
All right. So I'm going to like remove my glove. I'm going to extend a hand to
They're
Taffy.
twins though, so it's hard to say.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
To one of them then.
Yes.
Extend my hand and say, it's so lovely to meet you.
He says, oh, yes, you too. I should make a formal introduction. I am Taffy Worthington. This is my brother, Topper. Our father is in the shipbuilding business back in Connecticut. I don't know if you know the Worthington shipping company, but well, we like to come over here every now and then, you know, take a little jaunt across the pond to hang out with our dear friend Tatiana. She's just showing us around the city.
Does he take my hand?
He does. Yeah, he does. Okay. But he's really like not paying attention to you though. He's like he's just running on about like what they've been seeing in London and everything.
Going off, and he has his hand in my hand. I'm going to squeeze it fully with the intention to break something.
Okay, nice. I don't even need a roll here. I'm gonna make you probably mark your reflection, or scar the reflection, but I do like this as a sort of like you like crush his hand.
Yeah.
He screams out and yells, as he falls down.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'd heard that Americans were delicate, but I didn't expect it to this level. My employee here will help you. Green, can you help this poor person?
Of course. Come with me.
And we'll come back to that. Mr. Taliford, what questions do you pose to this?
And I think, we'll take them.
Mr. Taliford, what questions do you pose to Levy?
So how can I get you to bring me to you?
Oh, that's good. She says, I don't know where I am, but I know something of how I got here. And she lifts up what appear to be a little bundle of silk veils or scarves. And she removes the top one. They're draped over her hand. She removes the top one. The top one is black. Then she removes the next one, which is gold, revealing a silver one beneath, which she removes. And then she removes the last one, which is white. She says, black, gold, silver, white, that is the order. That is also your clue. Mr. Nelson, you can see a shadowy figure approaching Obert's knife. And it is Obert. He calls to you, calls like to whoever's in the little hovel where Rag and his family live. He says, It is time to feed the great he sow. It is time to replenish the trough. Come outside now and we'll make it quick, painless. You will become one with the great swine. And in that sense, you will gain something like eternity. He pulls the blade out of the ground. What do you do?
Yeah. Does he pull it out with his opposite hand now, or has his shoulder somehow been repaired?
Maybe he's just like handling it very poorly, right?
Yeah. I think Hank will step forward from the shadows cast by the lamplight into the entrance to the hovel, and I think he's not wearing his duster. He like left that. It's just him, and he sort of has his golden railroad spike in one hand, and he has his revolver in the other. And he says, "At times like this, what would Mock have us do? Only one of us is departing here this evening, dear Obert."
He says, well, if I'm the one who walks away from this confrontation, I will make sure that your body is prepared for the sacred trough in the appropriate manner. If you are the one that walks away from this confrontation, I would ask you to carefully remove my bones and grind them down to powder, drain my blood into a sacred glass vessel, and flint the skin into perfect strips.
I'm actually not that handy with a knife.
Well, I suppose then I better be the one to walk away. And we'll cut away from there. Let's go back to the Theater Grand Guignol. Alicia, Act 2. Describe Act 2 in which, pushed past her limits, the nanny murders her bratty charges. How does the audience respond?
I think that picking up on the fire theme and a good old common folklore thing, I think that she cooks them. I think that she throws them into a large pot and gives them a little taste of their own medicine. I think that the audience like loves and hates it. Like they live for this like gruesome goriness, but the shock of seeing children murdered is obviously beyond their sort of moral sensibilities. So it's titillating.
That's why you go there, right? Good. So back at this impromptu little gathering in the salon of Hargrave House. Green, you said you were tending to Taffy. What's going on there?
So Green will bring Taffy through the salon to like a side room, but on the way they will stop at the fireplace to kind of stoke the ashes there to start a fire with poke in the ashes, and then go to the side room and to kind of.
Oh, Adrian, we're losing you just a little bit.
Put some. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we lost you, Adrian. Let's go to Mr. Quinn. Mr. Quinn.
Bandaging the hand up.
Adrian, we lost you. We couldn't really hear that. So we'll just go to Mr. Quinn for now. So Mr. Quinn, what are you doing after you're done injuring Taffy?
So as Green takes Taffy away, I just like casually saunter into the salon and I'm just like, Seems like Taffy's had a most unfortunate accident as I'm like putting my glove back on. And I'm just gonna like make myself a drink from the cart. I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna look at Julius, paying like no attention to Tatiana or Topper. Like I don't even acknowledge their existence. And I'm just going to say to Julius, do you think that I'm a good host?
Julius says, well, Ethan, I think that like everyone who has ever lived in Hargrave House, you contain multitudes. And sometimes your multitudes are, how shall we put it? A bit self-absorbed.
Yes, well, you would know all about that, wouldn't you?
Well, I just think that
problem, Julius.
I just think that I don't think you really show Green the appreciation he deserves. What he really needs is someone who can respond well to his insatiable desire to please.
I invited you into this home. I allowed you to stay. I let you drink of my own life source. And now it's come to my attention that you are impeding on my property. And we can't have that.
He says, oh, Mr. Quinn. I could strike you down right now, and Tati and Toffer would find that most amusing, but I'm not going to, because I like you too much.
I think it's fair to say that we both have our gifts and our secrets. You might like me, but you don't know me.
He says, I have my ways of becoming more intimately familiar with you than you might like. And he looks at Tati and Topper and says, do you want to see a party trick? And Tatiana goes, oh yes. And Julius bares his fangs and opens his mouth. And you can see little bits of blood flying from your lips and tear ducts and ears and nose right onto his tongue. He's drawing your blood out of your body. We'll come back to that moment. Green, assuming we have you now just on audio, Green,
Yes.
What are you doing with Taffy in the meantime?
I think Green started to bandage their hand and maybe give them some ether to kind of numb the pain. And they say like, I'm so sorry. I'm sure Mr. Quinn was just about so excited that you're here, and it's really wonderful. All the things you said about America. I have not been there. And what did you say again? Was your business there? And what is bringing you to London? I'd love to hear more.
He says, Well, if you must know, and he's like grimacing, he says, Tatiana and Julius and my brother and I, we were going to do a bit of hunting this weekend at Tatiana's home. And until a few moments ago, I was unsure what our quarry was going to be, but I have a better sense of it now. We'll cut over to Mr. Taliford. Mr. Taliford, what's your second question?
So I think one of the questions is, let me find it. What frightens you? But I don't think I'm asking exactly like that. I think I'm going to try to touch her and see what happens and tell her that she doesn't need to be frightened.
Oh, good. You do. You touch her. And she puts her finger up to your eye and directs your eye across the way. And hanging in free space in the shadowy streets of London, there is a gray door painted with images like the orrery in the Astral plane room. And she says, go there and find me. Take me from this place. Mr. Nelson, what do you do?
I think Hank's gonna harness a bit of the power of the beast. I think he's gonna actually holster his revolver, and he's just gonna like sort of toss the railroad spike back and forth between his hands. And he's going to like close his eyes for a second, and then he's going to open them back up, and you're going to see that thing where his pupils have sort of split again, and he has a few different irises and pupils floating around in each eye. And I think his enormous mutton chops have sort of started to solidify again into these mandibles. And I think he's just going to charge him. He's going to like tackle him and try to just throw him into the wall of this place and just start to tear him apart.
Night move. What are you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
I'm afraid that Obert is stronger than I think, and that he's going to be able to overpower me, probably.
It's worse than that. He'll overpower you, and he will perform the slop procedure that he described earlier on your body, and with Rag as well, and Rag's family members. Let's have if you're okay with that, let's have the roll with vitality.
And I'd like to mark my golden railroad spike.
Go for it.
All right. Oh, thank goodness for that. That is a 9 + 1 is 10.
Nice. Go ahead and give us the moment. Give us the scene. What happens?
Yeah, I think that he charges towards Obert, and Obert's his technique's a bit roughed up by the hole in his shoulder as he swings up his colossal cleaver and tries to swing it at Hank, tries to behead him. And I think Hank just sort of easily, especially with all of his heightened senses right now, he dodges it. He pretty much just body checks Obert into the wall and takes his railroad spike and drives it home in his opposite shoulder, pinning him there. And you see the spike, go through his shoulder, through the following wall, and you can see the tip golden and red intermingling in what little light there is. And then I think his mandibles sort of solidify fully, sort of coming out of the sides of his face. And I think he just chops off Obert's head right there at the neck with his mandibles. And to bring in the darkened threshold, which I marked, I think he doesn't hear it at first, but he hears a cry from inside the hovel. And he like sort of steps back, and you see him blink, and his eyes go back to the way they are normally, and his mutton chops sort of just go back to being mutton chops. And stumbling out of the threshold, because he'd had the family hide inside, I think is the boy who we'd met earlier, with like blood going down his arm from where the spike went through the wall and into him hiding inside. And I think Hank is taken aback by this sort of collateral damage, and he pulls out the spike from the lifeless body of Obert, and I think he grabs the head and then walks quickly away.
Our last stop, Act 3. Adrian, describe Act 3, in which the nanny gets her comeuppance. The final scene should be very bloody. This is the Grand Guignol, after all.
So we see a prison, and the nanny is in prison now, and there is another woman who's here because she murdered her husband after the husband hurt or beat the kids. And I think we see that woman like waiting for the nanny after some, I think like a religious ceremony or so at the prison. And then when they meet her, I think she passes them off in like a dark corner, and they start beating her, and she falls to the ground, and it just continues beating, and blood is on the ground and everywhere. And that other woman just doesn't stop beating the nanny on the ground. She doesn't move anymore.
Mr. Quinn, Julius is drawing the blood from your body. You can see the specks, the droplets of blood flying out of your orifices directly into the back of his throat. And what do you do?
I would like to just stand my ground and keep my cool and not rise to the occasion.
Move. What are you afraid is going to happen if you lose your nerve?
I guess I'm afraid that he won't stop, that my cool intimidation tactic will fail, and he will just suck all the blood out of me.
It's worse than that. He will drain you completely and then assert himself as the master of Hargrave House. And so it's going to be with sensitivity. I want to take a look at your conditions. I don't think your conditions really apply, so you can just roll with sensitivity. If you can think of a way to work a personal quarters item in, by all means.
I was thinking Casanova's perfume might come into play here. Like it's got like a charming kind of calming effect.
Okay, I'll take that. You can also draw something else from your collection too, anytime you want. But yeah, go for it.
That's an 8. I want to come out the winner though, so I'm going to up a mask to make that a 10.
Very good. You hold your ground. He laps up the last drop of blood from the tip of his fang with his tongue. And he says, well, I'm feeling I'm very excited about how the rest of this evening is going to proceed. Mr. Quinn, as always, you are delicious.
In response, I like to think that there's like maybe like a tiny like fleck of blood that I'm just gonna like wipe off and then lick off my own finger while looking him directly in the eye.
Nice. Green, after Taffy tells you that someone, maybe Mr. Quinn, maybe you, is going to be hunted by the group of them, what do you do or say? How do you respond?
I think Green wants to get back into the saloon with the others, so I think that they kind of quickly finishing the bandage and say, we should not leave the others waiting too long.
He'll go with you. And he says, I do hope that you and your employer will come visit us at Brathwaite Hall soon.
Mr. Quinn rarely rejects an invitation from intriguing hosts.
And you're back in the salon. You see kind of just the very end of the scene with Mr. Quinn licking blood from the corner of his mouth. What do you do?
I have an idea. Because I wiped it with my finger, I'm wearing gloves. The gloves I'm wearing are normally white. They're now stained. So I would like to just hold my hand up to Green in the hopes that he will come and change my glove. Again, while looking Julius right.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So I think with extreme care, Green will take off the glove and kind of open the drawer in the saloon with beautiful new gloves and take one out and put it on the hand that Mr. Quinn just keeps holding up.
Mr. Talford, Penelope Levy lets go of your hand and steps back into the darkness. Just give us the little end of this. What do you do? What are you feeling? What's going on?
So I think Talford kind of like becomes aware of his surroundings again for like the first time and realizes that he's like, whether, unconsciously or whether he was drawn there, he realizes he's in front of Figg's Pig's shop and like his stomach growls and the last thing you see is him going in the front door.
Very good. Mr. Nelson, give us a little denouement of your night.
Yeah, I think he carries this severed head into the Figg's Pig's shop, and he goes down to the basement where that altar was, and he just sets the head on the altar and then leaves.
Oh, dying to know who got there first, Mr. Talford or you, right? But who knows? It's the dawn phase. The dawn, let's do a quick dawn phase. No threats were resolved yet. Let's go to dawn questions. A question, the hunters did answer a question, so everyone's getting credit for that first one. A threat is not resolved, however. And Mr. Nelson, did you experience an echo in the night?
To mirror the like orange tip of the poker with the tip of the railroad spike.
Oh, good. Did you use violence to solve a problem? Yes.
Yeah.
Did you share a treasured memory from the States during an intimate
Not this
moment?
time.
Okay, very good. Let's go to Green. Did you experience an echo in the night, Green?
I'm not sure if that got lost, but I stoked the fire and
Oh no, yeah, I got that.
Put up the fire in the saloon.
Yeah. Did you demonstrate obsequious behavior? Yes, you did in front of others. Did you engage in a petty reprisal of someone who angered your employer?
I don't think so.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Quinn. Did you experience an echo in the night? Oh, you're muted, Alicia.
Yeah. We had the blood from the nanny, and then I had the blood on my glove.
Oh, very good.
That counts. But
Did you create an ornate, over-the-top erotic experience for someone else's pleasure? Yes, I think that was in the photograph thing.
yes. Yeah.
Did you let someone touch you and then make them pay a price? Yes, you did. Let's press on. Mr. Talford, did you experience an echo in the night?
The pies.
Yes. And did you have a face-to-face encounter with a dark entity?
I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. Weirdly not, I don't think.
Right.
Did you counsel someone using your supernatural affinities as the basis for that advice?
Yes, on that.
On the what?
On the church in the beginning. With
Oh, that's
Mr.
right.
Wilson.
Yeah. Very good. Let's keep going. You can mark new elective dawn questions if you wish, or leave either or both the same. Playbook and custom moves. Nothing that needs to be done there. Let's do Janus Mask prompts and also scarring the reflection, the statue. If you have a Janus Mask prompt that needs to be done, you can go ahead and do it. Or Mr. Quinn, if you want to tell us how the statue is changing, you can do that as well.
I have 2 masks to do and scar the reflection. So scar the reflection first, in classic fashion, I like it to reveal something I've done. So I think that the right hand on the statue starts to crumble away as if it has been crushed. And then for my masks, narrate a flashback to your childhood that shows how even then people were willing to suffer in order to make you happy. So there, it's a flashback to me as a child, dressed a very long time ago, like not, it's crazy long time ago, hundreds of years ago. And I'm dressed in like this dress and I have long hair, and sort of outside in the woods, there are some boys playing, and I just kind of walk up to them and I say, I want your clothes. And so these boys like undress and they're just naked in the woods and they give me their clothes. And then narrate, I didn't get much time to think about this one. Narrate a flashback to your young adulthood that shows the first time you met the artist who fell in love with you. So I think that it is still a long time ago, but not quite hundreds of years ago, maybe like 200 years ago. And there's like a kind of hazy, smoky bar, and it's filled, or tavern sort of situation, and it's filled with just women. And then you see me sit down at the table with a like a beautiful woman with like, she's got tightly coiled hair and she's very voluptuous, and I just set a drink down in front of her and we have our first conversation.
Good. Any other Janus masks?
I also marked Mask of the Past today to narrate a flashback to the time after you finally went west that shows you happy and free. I think this is sort of a montage-y scene of he like arrives with like basically nothing off of a train. He's got like a bag slung over one shoulder. He's smaller than he is now. He's a bit thinner, definitely younger. And there's like a cut shot of him just working different jobs, like, you know, him scrubbing tables in some bar, him with a hammer, shirtless, hitting some railroad spikes, him like riding on a horse leading some cattle. And those are sort of, you know, back to back to back as he cycles through different things. And then he's just sitting in a rocking chair on the porch of a small wooden dwelling in the woods. And they're on like sort of the side of a hill, and it overlooks, you can see down below, they're working on a railway line, and you can see just people, there's a small town down there. It's, you know, probably a few, you know, several miles away, but you can see the happenings and the goings on. And he looks away from that over just deeper into the woods, and it's just serene as he sits rocking in this chair and takes a sip from a bottle in his hand, and he smiles. And I think that's the clip.
Nice, thank you. Were there any other Janus masks? Is that everybody?
I have another one. We see the beautiful exterior of the Palais Royal in Paris, and kind of we see the attic behind one of in the attic behind one of these beautiful windows. We see Green working on a costume, tailoring it, kind of sewing it together. It's obviously an actor's costume, and then we see later an actress wearing it on the stage of the Comédie Française.
Nice.
And I have one also. So narrative flashback to your childhood that shows the first time you encountered a dark entity. And so I think we see like a young Mr. Taliford in the back room of a church. And I think he has a little cot and he lives in this church. And it's late at night and there's a tap on the window. And he looks out the window and I think like there's this whole gang of little kids outside the window, like waving for him to come out. And I think it's the first time he's ever like interacted with another child at all, because he's been sequestered in this church. And so I think we just see him like open the window and crawl out into the dark and like run off into the dark with this little gang of demon kids.
Very good, very good. Fabulous, thank you, everybody. And with that, that's the end of the session. If anybody has to go, we went a little long, so if anybody has to go, thank you so much for hanging out a little bit longer. If anybody wants to stay for Stars and Wishes, I'll be here for a few minutes for Stars and Wishes. So let's go around the table. If anybody has any Stars or Wishes they want to offer, go for it.
He just left my stars for Dan and the creepy demon children he just had, because I love creepy children.
Really liked the development this time. I like how more of the monstrous stuff with our vampire friend is starting to come to the surface. And I'm excited to see where stuff with Julius goes. So
yeah, I think this is kind of picking up on there's a lot more action in a sense, and more kind of hard confrontations now between the hunters and the other characters and the threats. So I think that's good to see.
I really enjoyed the final showdown with Obert. I thought that was great. Like we didn't get to see Obert. Like, I mean, Obert was just, a character for 2 sessions, but I feel like we got to know a lot about Obert in those 2 sessions, and it was really fun to sort of see this sort of like almost like Western style showdown between Obert and Mr. Nelson. It was really fun. Enjoyed that a lot.
I didn't engage with it this time, but I really like the Whateley camera just as a threat. I really like all the stuff around that. I was really enjoying all the
It's
scenes.
so weird.
Yeah, it's so quirky and weird, and I love the ties to the Fragrant Void and all that stuff. So
yeah. It is officially establishes Brindlewood Bay and the Between is the same universe, right? So, any other Stars and Wishes?
I'm really looking forward to getting my picture taken. And I think this was also my wish last time, so I'm going to make it my wish this time and remember to do it. I want to go and use my Cosmic Passage move and get information from my statue.
Your night phases keep getting interrupted by your intentions in the evening keep getting interrupted by the world. Fabulous. My wish, I really want to see I'd like to see I definitely want to see like a couple more of the character moves. I'd like to see Tall Tales for sure. Yeah, I don't think we've had a chance. Did you just take that, or?
No, I've had that. That's actually the first improvement I took.
Okay,
I've only
yeah.
used it. I used it with the maid.
That's right. I do like that one a lot, though. I'd like to see I'd definitely like to see more of the collection. I'd like to see some other things in the collection and find out what that's about. Oh, now that you have Taketh Away, that's a really great move. I'd love to see that come into play. So yeah, I just want to kind of see more character moves, I think, in general.
Just keep using these items so I can
remodel
them.
Mark your personal quarters.
I'm really interested to see if Green ever takes the railroad spike, what he does with it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I had a great time. Thank you all so much. I'm going to stop the recording.